Hello, everybody. Welcome in. It's Friday. You know what that means.
Front Office Friday!
Let's go. It's Front Office Friday. I didn't know if there was going to be a follow-up to the Front Office Friday yell today. You're keeping me on my toes now, my friend. I never know what's coming.
I have to. I can't let you get comfortable. You get comfortable in this league, you get bumped off. You got to stay on your toes.
What is it they say in Ocean's 11? You lose focus even for a moment and people get hurt. That's what one of my favorite all-time movies, by the way, just to throw on at any given moment. You can just toss that movie on
all three of them
and totally enjoy it.
Yeah, all three. And you can tell they all had such a blast making those movies. Like, yeah, I'm a big fan.
Yes, those are absolutely fantastic. Well, welcome in, everybody. We're going to talk some NBA basketball here and plenty to discuss going on around the league. So if you're joining us via YouTube, if you're over on X, throw in your questions, your comments, and we'll talk quite a bit about the NBA and everything else that's going on in the sporting world. But I guess, Keith, let me start with this. You know, we've talked a lot about how the Boston Celtics would prefer to not see the Miami Heat in the playoffs if they could avoid it. Do the Atlanta Hawks now make that list?
I don't think so. I don't think there's quite the history there. But yeah, I mean, they're in a spot where the Celtics are full on experimenting with stuff while resting players. Joe Mazzulla was asked after the game if anybody didn't see the game, the Celtics switched Kristaps Porzingis onto DeJounte Murray liberally over the final few minutes of the game, and Murray got to open overtime. He ended up with 3 consecutive pull-up jumpers that he made, all 3 of them. Now, DeJounte Murray shot the ball 44 times. I think he channeled Kobe's final game very much, where he's like, I'm getting my shots up. And honestly, probably could have shot more. He was one of the only guys that really kind of was getting it going, but played pretty well, even taking a lot of shots. You're going to miss quite a few with that many. But back to the Celtics part of it, after the game, they said, like, what was that? Like, it wasn't working. Like, why were you doing it? And he said, yeah, we wanted to try it. We wanted to see what it would look like if we need to do that in a playoff game at some point. Is that something we could do? And did it work? Did it not work? Well, you know, it didn't really work there. He made a couple nice plays later. Now, I don't know how much of that was Murray running out of gas or what the case was, but yeah, they're just trying stuff right now, and it led to a loss. And a lot of people are like, forget it. This is stupid. This team lost twice to the Hawks and blah, blah, blah. And there's a lot of, there should be pride, like, and all this stuff. And it's like, pride of what? They've clinched just about everything. They're going to clinch the best record total in the league at some point, unless you think they're going to lose all the rest of their games in Denver, Minnesota, or OKC is going to win all theirs. So there's just really nothing to play for at this point.
Here's the thing, Keith. It's that no one is going to remember this.
No,
everyone's a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, what people are going to remember from this season for Boston, it's did they win the title or not? That's what they're going to remember. Like, look, for my Lakers, we talk about 2020. We talk about the championship. We talk about the fact that they won. Nobody talks about the fact that they sucked in the bubble. They were awful. Once they clinched the 1 seed, they were terrible. They started dropping random games because there was nothing to play for. But does anybody talk about that? No, because it didn't matter. Right? Yeah, they were trying stuff. They're experimenting. That's exactly what the Celtics should be doing right now. It's experimenting, figuring out what works, what doesn't, your last final tune-ups and things like that. So if you are being a prisoner of the moment and you're overreacting to dropping a game to the Atlanta Hawks, just remember, this is not what history is going to judge this team by. Right now is not what is going to matter. It's a few months from now. That's what's going to ultimately matter for this group. So I don't think you have to panic over a overtime loss to the Atlanta Hawks, over dropping a couple of games to that team or whatever. In the long run, nobody's going to remember this. People will remember what happened. If they win the championship or they don't, that's what people are going to remember.
Yeah, in not experimenting, just running their regular guys out there, not changing up coverages and just running through these teams, that would also not mean anything. It doesn't no one would care if they had bounced back and really beat the Hawks by 40. Everybody would be like, okay, they should have. Like, that's, what should have happened. So it doesn't really matter. I'm not, none of this concerns me. too much with all this, because again, it's all been clinched. Like they're just chugging along now towards the end of the year. There's also March always has a million weird results across the league. I mean, Denver lost the other night to Phoenix in a game that they probably shouldn't have lost. Milwaukee lost last night against New Orleans. So it's just it just is what it is.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, look, even for my Lakers, they beat the Hawks a couple weeks ago, and the reaction was, "Who cares? It's the Hawks," right? Like that.
Yeah.
And that's the situation the Celtics are in. You beat the Hawks, it's who cares. You lose to the Hawks, it's oh my gosh, the sky is falling, the world is ending. But that's just not reality. This is the time of year when bizarre things happen in these games, and it's the way it goes. It's every year. We've done this for long enough to where we're used to these patterns now. This time of year, weird stuff starts happening as teams are resting guys, as teams are trying different stuff, and all of that. But let's take a quick peek here at the standings. We've got a bunch of questions and comments coming in here, but let's take a quick peek at the standings. We've got the East is looking like this right now. So you've got Milwaukee, and we need to talk a little bit about Milwaukee in a moment here, but they could get caught by the Knicks, but it's, there's a little bit of a cushion there. The Knicks also have a very small cushion, just half game cushion right now between them and the Cavs for the 3 seed. And then you've got Orlando. Orlando, I know we talked about this yesterday. They could make a push for the 4 seed, but they seem pretty settled. I don't think Orlando is falling before 5 or below 5. So I think that's pretty safe. They're going to stay at least at 5, if not move up. But my guess will be they stay at 5.
I'm with you on that. I think that's where they end up sticking and landing. It's 3 games in the loss column is a lot to make up when there's only 8 to 10 games left in the season. Again, I say this all the time. Even if you think the other team is going to go 5-3 with 8 games to play, you have to go 8-0 to make up 3 games. And then the tiebreakers come in and everything else. So I'm there with Orlando. I think maybe they catch Cleveland. We'll see. Cleveland's going to get Donovan Mitchell back tonight.
Yes.
Hopefully that gets them playing a lot better, and they can get kind of figuring it out there. But yeah, I mean, 2 through 4 to me, that's still very much the race here. You got Bucks are only 2 games up on the Cavs, so you get a lot to be decided at that point.
Yeah, exactly. And then we've talked all about Indiana, Miami. What's that going to look like? Yeah. They could wind up flip-flopping. Philly can get themselves into the mix there as well. So that'll be interesting to watch, that 6, 7, 8 battle in the East. And then we look at the West.
Well, and just on the 9-10 too.
Yeah.
The Hawks could play now, has them in range of the Bulls.
They've won 4 in a row.
Of hosting the 9-10 game. And that's, not nothing. You'd rather host than not host. So yeah.
I've got there was a comment here in the chat, since you mentioned the Hawks, that the Hawks look better without Trae Young. Do you agree with that? Are they actually playing better basketball without Trae? And then does that inform the Hawks' decision making this summer?
Yeah, and I don't know that they actually look better without Trae Young. I think they look different. There's just a lot more balance to things, instead of it being DeJounte Murray takes a turn, Trae Young takes a turn. It's Murray's going to have the ball. He's going to kind of key everything. Bogdanovich is the secondary guy. Right now, it's DeAndre Hunter as the kind of third playmaker in the group, and that's what they run through. And they've got a lot of shooting on the floor at almost all times, because they've got guys like Garrison Matthews playing quite a bit. Wesley Matthews, that's all he can really do at this point in his career. So you just kind of play those guys. Then I think they'd look the same if it was DeJounte Murray out and Trae Young was in. I think it'd be the same results. I think what we've seen now is DeJounte Murray, Trae Young does not work. I think we have enough evidence that it doesn't work. I think they're both better without the other guy there. Who do you look to move? If you look to move one or the other, that's the question for the summertime. I think that Atlanta has to start kind of having some conversations around, what do we want to do? My gut tells me it's DeJounte Murray, but there's a world where it could be Trae Young, just out of the sense of, hey, let's really clean up our books here, and we'll move forward with a better, cleaner cap sheet, less money committed, and Trae Young probably fetches a far larger return in trade because he's the all-star and all that stuff. So we'll see.
My thought is this. If I'm the Hawks, if I'm their management, what I'm doing is I'm listening to offers for both guys. I'm going to lay it all out on the
Sure.
table, and I'm going to see what's the biggest benefit if we go this way, if we go with the DeJounte Murray trade. I'm going to trade one of them, but I want to know what can I get as teams are calling, because look, realistically, most teams that are interested in DeJounte Murray, they will also be interested in Trae Young and vice versa, right? If you're looking for a guard, you're looking for a guard. And so I'm asking everybody, hey, if a team calls up and says, hey, we'll give you this and this for DeJounte Murray. Okay, what would you give us for Trae? And you lay all that out on the table, and then you figure out what is your best path from there. But my only maybe hesitation with this is, can you do that? Openly be fielding offers on both guys without alienating one of them, right? Or is it better to say, all right, we've decided Trae's the guy that's going to stick, so DeJounte's got the guy on the trade block, and we go tell Trae, you're not going anywhere, or vice versa. You're not going anywhere. You're our guy. We're building this around you. We're trading, the other guy. Is that the better path? Because managing the personalities, managing the feelings, all that kind of stuff, that's part of it. And we tend to look at it in cold, how do you get the best deal? That sort of a sense. But I do think that would be maybe a little bit chaotic, having both guys out on the trade market. We'll field offers for both, and then we'll pick whichever one is best. Maybe better for the Hawks to get ahead of it and make the decision ahead of time, kind of an informed decision of knowing Trae probably gets this much and Murray probably gets this much.
Yeah, I think that's much more of a fan and media created thing, that the players get worked up about being in trade rumors.
Uh-huh.
I think all the players realize, like, this is how the NBA works. Like, guys get traded sometimes. Where I think it can come back to bite you is, like, I go back to Ray Allen. Danny Ainge put him in about 25 different trade offers. Yeah. Then when it was time to re-sign him, Ray Allen was like, no, I'm going to Miami. Like, you had me traded to Sacramento, which is, at that time, it was like trading a player to Siberia.
Yeah.
And he was like, and now you're saying, but we love you. We want to re-sign you. That's where it can kind of bite you. But I think when guys are under long-term contracts, I think those guys are just like, it is kind of what it is. And, if we're in trade talks, we're in trade talks, and whoever's here is here, and off we go. So I don't know. We'll see. If I mean, some guys are more sensitive than others. Obviously, we know that, but I think it's more around contracts is where players can get, like we saw with James Harden. Hey, wait a minute, you promised me this. Now you're changing your mind. Yeah. That's where things can get really, really sideways.
That's a fair point. And, when we talk about this, like the trade market being what it is, and frankly, from a big picture perspective, the NBA benefits from the trade market being as robust as it is, from trade rumors, trade news. It keeps the NBA at the forefront of the news cycle almost the entire year, which is important in today's media space. But the players have enjoyed greater freedom of movement than ever before. Right. That's something that we're seeing now. Contracts are shorter. Players are able to switch to different teams. Players are able to ask out easier because contracts are shorter. It's not, hey, you're not demanding a trade 2 years into a 7-year contract. You've got more opportunities to go play for whatever team that it is that you want. But the downside is that with a more robust trade market, yes, there's going to be more trade rumors. So it's kind of the trade-off from the players' side of things. Yes, you're going to hear your name in trade rumors more often. There's going to be more trade rumors in general, but that's sort of the flip side of having more player movement in general in the NBA and more opportunity for players to wind up going where they want to go.
Yeah, absolutely. In a year like this, where there's only going to be probably 5 or 6 teams with meaningful cap space, there's not a ton of great free agents, you're going to see more trades. And that's just the reality of it. So that means more trade rumors, more trade talks that are going to come out. And it's, the longer I cover this league, the more true it really is. Every player is discussed in a trade every year to some level.
Yeah.
Some of them are discussed very no, you could give us every draft pick you have, plus every player you have. And no, the answer is no, we're not going to do it. And then, but it's still, guys get asked about, guys get called about. So it's just a weird spot to be in. And I think too, I always go back to how many players say, hey man, if you're in trade rumors, it means you're good enough that somebody wants you.
Sure.
Right. So that's always a good thing. I got to go to this real quick.
Yeah.
Because it's absolutely true. I don't know anybody who works harder than this guy.
Well, thank you.
Every day, man. I'm constantly like, oh, Trevor's doing this now. Oh, Trevor's live doing this, or Trevor's recording this video and stuff. So I just know it's cool that people see and appreciate the work.
Well, thank you. I do appreciate that. I do, and it's a labor of love. It's a lot of fun. There's days that it gets a little hectic, a little crazy, but I love getting to do this. So there's no doubt about that. I will mention this, by the way, in terms of us being hardworking and all that. I'm going to put the link in the description here. Basketball Bulletin. You guys can check it out. That's Keith and I Substack. You want to support us directly? It's a great way to do that. Bryce Simon is contributing stuff. In fact, he's got a great breakdown up today on the Rockets and the Thunder. That one's up right now. So
Isaiah Collier scouting report.
Oh, yeah, that's right. The Isaiah
Yep.
Collier scouting report as well. He's got some great stuff up there as we're getting closer and closer to the NBA draft. So, guys, make sure you check that out. Go check out the Basketball Bulletin, and if you wouldn't mind, go ahead and subscribe as well. All right, let's get to this super chat question, and we'll get to the Western Conference in just a moment as well. Said, with Houston surging, who do you see from the upcoming free agent class that might be a Fred VanVleet, Brooks style young a player a young team should spend their cap space on? So the Rockets playing good basketball. They are right now, what's that 10-game win streak? They're very much threatening the Warriors to take the 10 seed from them. So Houston got, there were some eyebrows raised when they went after Dylan Brooks and paid him what they paid him, and Fred VanVleet. And were they skipping a step? Were they trying to go all in a little bit too soon for a young team? There were those kind of discussions, and rightfully so. But it's obviously with this run, it's starting to work. So who else could be that guy, that veteran player or players that could join a young team and help take them to another level?
Yeah, so I think the first thing you look at is, if we're talking the Fred VanVleet portion, that you're talking about a guy who's like a borderline all-star, because that's what Fred VanVleet was throughout the course of his Raptors run. So then you look at, all right, well, who are the all-star level players? And then you start taking some of them off the list. We talked about this a little bit when we talked about D'Angelo Russell in the point guard options. From my opinion, you're taking immediately the first 4 point guards off the list. Tyrese Maxey, Drew Holiday, James Harden, Emmanuel Quickley, all coming off the list because those guys are all probably staying right where they are. So then that eliminates them. I'm going to take Paul George off the list. I'm going to take OG Anunoby off the list. I'm going to take LeBron off the list because LeBron's either going to pick his destination and go wherever he wants, or just stay with the Lakers. I think it's just stay with the Lakers personally, is where that goes. So then you start, all right, well, who are real guys who could change teams? Pascal Siakam, probably not going to leave the Pacers with the amount they gave up to get him. They're probably going to really push to try to make sure they keep him. But if anything gets a little messy there, maybe he leaves.
And the word was that they already kind of had an understanding of what it would take to keep him. So
you don't make that big of a trade with that kind of package without feeling good. So then you're talking Klay Thompson, DeMar DeRozan, Jonas Valanciunas, Nick Claxton, Tobias Harris. That's a little bit of the problem here. Maybe somebody wants to throw big money at Miles Bridges. Like, it feels like, hey, fresh start, new home, time heals all wounds. Maybe that's where they go. And then you're looking for kind of like the next tier get down type of player. So then you're looking at the guys who are very good players like Malik Monk, Buddy Hield, Gary Trent Jr., Markelle Fultz. Maybe a team could come in and swipe D'Angelo Russell from a team. Restricted free agent who could be in play. They generally put those guys much lower, but a guy like Patrick Williams, who has had kind of a lost season due to injury. You could get into the center market and look at a guy like Isaiah Hartenstein, and feel like, all right, maybe we make a run at a guy like that. Those are the players. It's just, and I know a lot of people are probably like, ooh, like that. None of that sounds all that great. Yeah, that's kind of where we're at with this free agent class.
Which is why we've been calling it the summer of the trade, even though it feels like the last few years have also been the summer of the trade. But just free agency has been de-emphasized by contract situations, and a lot of players have had more of this mindset of, Give me an extension now, give me the long-term deal now, and I'll figure out my landing spot later if I need to. The trade market has been such that they're able to say, hey, I would like to go somewhere else. And teams have been pretty accommodating with that, obviously to varying degrees. But that's part of the reason why we see, we talk about these teams with cap space. We have to remind people all the time, Keith, you can do more with cap space than just sign players. Because if you look at the teams with cap space and you look at the free agent market, you go, oh, well, that's not good. That's not ideal. It's not like it's LeBron and Bosch are sitting out there or whatever. That's just not the way it is anymore. So you're in a situation now where I think teams can make those moves via trade, add some pieces, add some veteran players, and maybe somebody can take the leap. Keith, let me just say this: whoever is going to make this leap, whoever is going to look at Houston and say maybe we can do that this year, please be in the East. Enough of this. The Western Conference is the proverbial clown car where everybody's piling in. I don't know. Houston's going to be better next year. San Antonio is going to be better next year. Memphis is going to be resuscitated. Who knows? And then, good Lord, who knows what Danny Ainge is going to do?
They're the team, right? Because we expect Memphis to be much better next year. San Antonio better, but I still don't think they'll be a playoff contender next year, even a play-in contender. But yeah, Utah's the one that you could look at and say, all right, they got cap space. They've got a bunch of guys I kind of like already. Like, hey, here we go. People are throwing out a bunch of names in the chat of this guy could go to these places. A lot of these guys, these teams don't have cap space. So like Zach, I'm going to pick on you here briefly, just because you put it in the chat. Cavs have no way to get Malik Monk. They don't have enough cap space to get him. They have to be a sign and trade. They've got other concerns with trying to re-sign Donovan Mitchell. That said, Malik Monk, part of why I wanted to pull this up, Malik Monk's going to get paid this summer. And now if you're Sacramento, you're stuck because you only have his early bird rights and they don't have cap space. They don't have anything like that. So they're stuck in a world where you're hoping you can almost pull a little bit of a Bobby Portis situation where it's, hey, we'll pay you a bunch, but we're going to give you an option so you can jump right back out there. Then we've got your full bird rights next summer, and then we put it together. And that's how you kind of turn that into a you turn that into a like you got to look at it as all one big deal, even though it's two smaller year contracts, just because you're piecing it all together. That's the way you maybe hope that comes together. So that's where you go with that. So that's going to be interesting, right? To watch, how he gets paid, how much money he makes this summer, because he's a really, really good player. Yeah.
He's going to get paid somewhere. Maybe it's probably, I think it's probably going to be Sacramento, but
I hope so.
You never know.
Yeah. I mean, I hope the Kings can keep him. Otherwise somebody's going to get a player who is big time. And with the Kings, maybe that can turn into a spot where it's like, we just kind of, we don't want to lock in this kind of money or something like that. We'll see. We'll find out here soon enough. But yeah, I mean, that's he's one of the more, I don't want to call him underrated because I think a lot of people know he's good, but I don't know if people know just how good Malik Monk has been.
He's been fantastic. He's been fantastic all season. Armin, this is an interesting question because honestly, I don't recall this off the top of my head. What's the tiebreaker on a three-way tie? I know it goes overall win percentage, right? Then it goes head to head. Then it goes, if it's two teams in the same division, then it goes to the division record. If it's two teams not in the same division, then it goes conference record. What's the three-way tiebreaker?
I think it might still be division which is obviously the Clippers are out in ahead right now. Probably going to get the division winner tiebreaker. I think it might still be
Phoenix, Lakers, Sacramento.
Yeah, so that I'm just saying that removes that part of it, right? Because the division winner is always going to get the bump. So I think it might still be division. I'll look it up though, because I think the NBA did finally update their tiebreaker stuff, which is long overdue. They had the wrong old tiebreakers on there for years on their site. So yeah. Let's see, tiebreakers for.
So, let's say while you're looking that up, let's say Sacramento and Dallas. Somebody mentioned in the chat, Kenneth mentioned Sacramento is up 2-1 on Dallas, but they play tonight. Let's say Dallas wins. So now you're 2-2 on the season. What you would go to after that is technically you would go to division first. If one of the teams is their division winner, that would get the bump there. But because they're not in the same division, you would go to your conference record. And that's where you would look at, okay, Dallas is 27-19 right now. The Kings are 27-18. But if Dallas wins tonight, obviously that would bump them ahead. So Dallas, as of right, if the Kings and the Mavs were tied after tonight, I would have the Mavs being ahead based on conference record because they would have just won that game. Sacramento would be 27-19 at that point, and then Mavs would be 28-19. So that would give the Mavs, for now, the tiebreaker, and then the conference record would come into play through the remainder of the season.
Yeah. So to the question that was asked, Phoenix, Lakers, and Sacramento, more than two teams tied. In the case of a tie in regular season records involving more than two teams, following criteria will be utilized in the following order. 1, division winner. All right, that's out. That's not going to be a thing. Yeah. Clippers are going to win the division. 2, better winning percentage in all games among the tied teams. So you take their full head-to-head record against each other. So let's say they're still tied after that. Better winning percentage against teams in own division only if all tied teams are in the same division, which in this case they are. Then it goes to better winning percentage against teams in their own conference. So that becomes the conference record. Then better winning percentage against teams eligible for playoffs in their own conference. So it's what is your record against the other playoff teams. Then the final tiebreaker is better net result of total points scored less total points allowed, so point differential against all opponents. So that would come in there. It doesn't say what happens if they're still tied. I think we take them all out behind the barn and shoot them and just move on. I don't know. I don't know what happens then.
That's a brutal solution. Sorry, you guys are all still tied. We're going out back.
I really don't know.
You guys ever seen Old Yeller?
Yeah, well, that's what I was thinking of. But yeah, it's I really don't know. I'm not sure. I don't know if they just say, "Hey, Rockets, Jazz, your season's not over. You're in the playoffs now. We can't break this time." 3-way game, one of those ones that gets speculated about. What if you played with 3 hoops and 3 teams playing each other? Maybe
that'd be fun.
Finally break that out. Yeah, I'm really not sure.
So specifically in this situation, this is where the Lakers being 0-4 against the Kings would really hurt. If it is a 3-way tie and it goes to your overall winning percentage, in my mind, because I know the Suns and the Kings, I don't know what their direct head-to-head record is, but I know it's not one team sweeping the other team, or at least I'm pretty sure it's not. So that's where the Lakers would almost automatically be slotted third, even though they're, I think, 3-2 on the season, which they played the Suns 5 times because of the in-season tournament. Even though they're 3-2 against the Suns, because they're 0-4 against the Kings, that would almost automatically bump you back to the bottom of the group.
Yeah, you would think,
because I'm sure Sacramento and Phoenix they've split or something. I'm trying to look here.
I'm just guessing Sacramento being 9-6 in the conference probably is a fairly strong record. Like you said, they're 4-0 against the Lakers. They must have an okay record against the Suns too, because the Suns are only 7-8. So, and then I know it goes, once you break the 3-team tie, I think then it reverts to the 2-team thing from there. So I think you would go Kings, then whatever Lakers Suns tiebreaker would be, you'd go off that. But I'm not positive.
Sacramento is 2-1 up on the Suns on the season, and then they do still play again.
They do play one more. Yeah,
they play one more.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, we're gonna find out. Still a lot to be decided. There, I'm going to guess it's probably not going to come down to a 3-way tie, but maybe it'd be interesting if it did. That's the fun thing the NBA's done now too. They make that last day, like everybody plays, so and everybody plays at roughly the same time too. I think they almost do it like the NFL. They put in like 2 things. So yeah,
that's a blast. That's such a fun day, and they're early game. They're like afternoon games. So
exactly. And then the nice thing too is then it's like you get to breathe and sit down and be like, all right, what are our playoff matchups? What are our playing matchups? And we can start doing the work there, because that all happens. That week it's funny. People ask me all the time, like, what's like the busiest week of the year for you guys? And I was like, well, the trade deadline's really busy, draft week, deadline, free agency, like those days are really busy, but you're built up and ready for it. I said that the one where is like you have to be ready to react very quickly. It's playoff, like that week, because it's like, all right, playing tournament matchups are determined. let's go. Right, like give us some analysis on these because they played 2 days later. So it's like, all right, like let's you're drinking from the fire hose right then.
Keith, it's funny. We've talked about this before, but when we talk to people that are outside of basketball about, you talk to a family member or whatever, the season ends and we hear, oh, isn't it going to be nice to get a
Yeah.
break and all that stuff? And I always have to explain, no. The busiest time of year by far for us, it's the trade deadline and the week of the draft through like the middle of July, that month-ish, 3 weeks or so right there, especially like, I mean, my family knows you're not going to see me like June 27th through July 5th or whatever till I take off for summer league. You're probably going to see me very little during that stretch because it's all free agency, it's trades, it's still draft fallout, all that. That is the busiest time of year for what you and I do. So people look at it and just kind of assume, oh, that's when your summer starts and you get to relax and all that. No. This is our busy time when they're actually not playing games when we get into all the transaction stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I have to repeatedly explain that to a lot of people in my life of like, yeah, in this year, while we've got free agency like cranking up, really starting on June 30th, we've got Olympic qualifying tournaments are going on. Those will be happening. Summer League doesn't even start until the 12th this year, starts about a week later than usual. So we'll have Summer League running much later than usual. Summer League runs, and it runs until the 22nd of July. And then we've got a little bit of time there where there's a little tiny break until, let me make sure I get my dates right here. I think it is the 27th when the Olympic basketball starts. So we get about a 4-day break in there. And I'll also say too, free agency doesn't go like it used to. Free agency used to be 2 days in and we're kind of done. Now free agency will drag, multiple days in.
So. Yeah, that's correct. So, oh boy, in other words, we got to get a rest in before the summer hits. It's going to be busy for sure.
Jay, we're not wasting our time. This is our job.
Yeah.
This is not a hobby. Like this is how literally we make our living.
Yep.
So this is if it was solely that, we would go spend time. If it was just a hobby, we'd make more time. But this is what we do for work now. This is just so everybody knows this is the job. Yeah. There's no complaints. Like we both did other jobs alongside this for a long time, but it is like this is what we do now. So it's just that's the reality of it.
I mean, there's definite positive. I mean, literally on the other side of this screen right now, my daughter is hanging out right there because she's off from school for Easter and everything. So she's hanging out right there right now, and I'm going to go play with her a little bit after this. So there's some real benefits to this. There's no question. We're not complaining.
I get to do pick up and drop off every day, which I wouldn't be able to do if I still had my quote unquote real job with that. So
there's downsides too, and we can certainly talk about that. But there's some real upside. Tavarius said, "What should the Hawks do this summer? Trade Young or Murray? It all depends on what they get back.
Sure,
it all depends on what the return is for these guys. And I think both guys should have a strong return, but it's just a matter of weighing which player gets a return that puts you in a better position moving forward. And I think that's it. I think there's something to the idea that Trae Young has more star power, certainly, than DeJounte Murray. So maybe from a franchise standpoint, from an ownership standpoint, who's going to allow us to sell more tickets? Who's going to allow us to charge a higher price for tickets? That's probably going to be Trae Young, depending on what the return is for Trae, of course. But so that's something that oftentimes we don't take into account, right? It's who's going to bring in the bucks, and not the Milwaukee Bucks, but the dollars. But Trae Young is probably going to be that guy. But what's the return? Can you get something that's really exciting back for Trae Young, and then off you go, and you've got a winning team that's going to drive people in? Or is it better to move on from Murray? I think one of them needs to get moved, but it all depends on what those offers look like.
Yeah, that's my big thing. As I said before, I think we now know you can't bring them both back. Like that can't be a thing. You're going to have to get it decide between one of the two and move on. I think Trae Young brings back the bigger return, but you also have a lot more invested in Trae Young. He's your franchise guy, so it would have to be one of those monster returns with that, and then we kind of go from there. I just wanted to pull this one up real quick. Andrew asks, isn't Norman Powell going to be a free agent? Norman Powell still has 2 years left on his contract with the Clippers. He signed an extension when he got traded there from the Trailblazers. So he's still got 2 more years left after this one with no options. So no, I'm not saying he's definitely going to stay a Clipper. Maybe he could get traded, but not a free agent for a couple more seasons.
One Peruvian guy said, looking forward to seeing Trevor working on Sportsnet LA one day. Well, hey, I can always do it for them. There's have them have their people reach out to my people, and we'll set it up. We'll make it happen.
Yep, I love it. Look at this one.
Oh,
look at this guy, 2:40 a.m. James, thank you, my man. We appreciate you hanging in.
And as a teacher too, you need your sleep.
Well, it's a weekend. Should be off tomorrow.
Oh, that's right.
It's Saturday morning.
I wasn't thinking.
They're living in the future.
I wasn't thinking. They're ahead. Yeah. That's right.
Yep. But yeah, that's crazy, man. Thanks for checking in. Somebody earlier said they were watching from the Philippines today. So yeah, that's huge. I love it. I love when we get all these people from all over the place. Another guy from Tokyo checking in. Look at that. We've gone worldwide, my friend.
It's amazing. It's amazing the popularity of basketball worldwide, of the NBA, and you get people coming in at all different times of the day, and it's I'll tell you what, having the Dodgers play their first 2 games of the season at 3 a.m. Pacific time, that gave me a whole lot more respect for our international fans, who I already was in disbelief that there were people up in the middle of the night watching us and watching the Lakers and watching NBA basketball and all of that. But then having to do it for a couple of days, I was like, okay, I knew this was rough. This is even more difficult than I thought. I don't know how these people pull this off, but it's absolutely incredible.
Man, Serbia, South Africa. I love it. I think, is that all?
Ooh, Alaska.
Do we hit all the continents? Like, let's go. Like this.
Anybody
this
from Antarctica watching?
Yeah, we need somebody from Antarctica. That'd be huge. That'd be great. Okay. Yeah, this one will go hand in hand with the one I was going to pull up. So let's go.
Okay. So this is best destinations for Paul George in the offseason plus trade packages. I still think that Philly option is really interesting if he decides if he's not getting the offer he wants from the Clippers. And I still think 90+% the Clippers will keep him. I don't think they're going to go move into their new stadium without Paul George. I think they're going to come to a deal. But should things go awry, I think the 76ers would be waiting with open arms and would be a really attractive landing spot.
Yeah, we say every year, whatever team is sitting there with the overwhelming amount of cap space kind of becomes the boogeyman, right? Because I could just go there. Like, that's the player, the agent, everybody's just, we can go there. What makes Philly a really interesting boogeyman is Embiid and Maxey will be there. Yeah. So you already have 2 pieces. Now on the flip side, let's just say they went and got Paul George. You sign Paul George to a max. You've got Embiid, Maxey, and Paul George. Pretty good. You need 12 other dudes. And you start looking a lot like, well, we're going to be the Phoenix Suns because it's going to be, we'll use the room exception and we will be a whole bunch of dudes on minimum contracts and off we go. So that becomes the, tricky part on that is, and I think we're seeing some of these teams start to realize that maybe isn't the way we want to build our roster.
Yeah.
It's funny. I was having this conversation with someone in the league yesterday, and I said, if you could tell me in October, well, really in July, when I'm building my team, that the next April, when the playoffs start, I would have my 3 stars in enough role players in a decent playoff position, everybody would take it and say, let's go. Let's figure it out. Problem is you got to get through 82 games, and you don't know that you're going to get there healthy. And we've seen that with the Suns when it's predominantly been Beal, but when Beal or Booker has been missing, they just have a hard time staying at the level because then it falls to, now we just got 2 guys and a bunch of role players. And that becomes a challenge. We saw that with the Lakers a couple years ago. Less so this year because LeBron and AD have largely been healthy. But the last year, we've talked about it a million times. That's why they had to go 100 miles an hour all the way through at the end of the season because those guys miss time. And when you miss time and you're that top heavy on your roster, you struggle to backfill those guys. You did that. It's hard. That's why a guy like D'Lo is so important, because at least if LeBron is out, D'Lo can give you 25 or 30 points in your run with it. So just a little bit of a interesting kind of thing. But yeah, to this real question about PG, I think it's going to be the Clippers. I think all the rest of this is leverage discussion, and that's where it'll go.
Yeah, this is hey, you don't want to give us that player option on the final year. Well, you better, because otherwise the 76ers are out there. It's that type of thing. Because the 76ers, like, realistically, if Paul George was even considering leaving the Clippers, the 76ers would just say, "What kind of contract do you want?"
Yep.
What do you want? Just tell us. Do you want to do 2 years? Cool, do 2 years. You want to do 4 years? Great. Whatever. You want a player option? Cool. Put in whatever you want. Trade kicker? Cool. Let us know what kind of contract you want, and we'll do it. That would be the 76ers offer. And it would have to be, right?
Yeah.
So that's the way that would play out. And that's where they have leverage. One
minor equalizer here is he is over 38 rule guy now, because he's been around this long. So right? The Clippers can, he's 34 or like will be 30. He'll be 34 soon. So we're running into, for Paul George, functionally, his next deal is going to be a 4-year deal. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. We're already 45 minutes into the show on exactly how the over 38 rule works. You can go find it. We did it. It should be both on Front Office Show and Lakers Nation. We did a full, very long breakdown of it when it related to LeBron.
Yes.
In the past, you can search it and find it. But it's they're just in a spot where the teams get that, where you start saying, man, dude left $50 million on the table to join another team. It's always from that 5th year that they can only get from their current team. That's always the big pull of wow, they could give them that whole extra year. When it's 4 years, you're talking 8% raises. So you're talking probably a total of about 15, 20 million. But for Paul George, if he's like, I really want to be in Philly, he's not going to let 15, 20 million make the difference. He's just going to say, all right, let's go.
Exactly. All right. Roan says, how realistic is Donovan Mitchell to the Lakers next season? Pretty unrealistic, honestly. They would trying to work something out. They could essentially, this is what would have to happen. Okay. First of all, you would have to hear this news bit would have to come out this summer, which Dan Gilbert recently, I think it was yesterday, day before, sounded really optimistic that they would get an extension done with Donovan Mitchell. You would have to hear no extension done, or Donovan Mitchell turned down max extension with the Cavs. If that happens, the moment he says no to a max extension, boom, trade market kicks off. Yep. They have to look to move him because he's going to be a free agent the following summer. Already has the ability to be one, and they would know he's not staying long term if he's turning down the most they could possibly give him. So at that point, his trade market would start off. But that's where you look at, okay, what assets do the Lakers have? They will have access to 3 first-round picks. How great are those first-round picks? It's the eye of the beholder. Depends on what you think about the Lakers' future and all of that. Then you've got some players. You've got, do you use Austin Reeves in a deal? Do you want to, is it Rui Hachimura's contract that you use? Remember, you've got D'Angelo Russell, who has a player option. There's no guarantee that he's even a contract you can put into a deal unless he picks up that player option. Is he going to? Probably not. So it gets tricky there to where you start asking the question, well, what's the Lakers' best offer, and would other teams beat that? And that's where I think not only would the Cavs look to extend Donovan Mitchell, so that's the first hurdle that you have to overcome. If he turns down an extension, then yes, the Donovan Mitchell trade market picks up. But then do the Lakers have the best offer out there on the table? And that's where I get pretty skeptical. I think there's a lot of teams that would be willing to go all in for a guy like Mitchell.
Yeah, absolutely. And the challenge with the Lakers part of that is, one, you kind of really need the Pelicans to defer the pick so that you do have all the tradable picks that you would have. So that becomes one part of it, right? Because if from the Cavs, we got to get this started going now. The other piece is, I always see it's things, and it's funny, I see somebody in there saying, if he tells teams he won't re-sign, it kills Cleveland's trip. There it is. Yes, but why this is different from AD is the Lakers were set up to have cap space to go sign AD the year that they or the next year would have been. You would have
Right.
got 1 year out of them. In this case with Mitchell, they're not set up necessarily to have that cap space unless you're assuming LeBron's gone or
Yeah.
something absolutely ridiculous. Like
LeBron
LeBron's
and
playing
D'Lo
for
would
the
have to be
minimum.
gone.
Yeah, LeBron, D'Lo. I mean,
And then some.
you're just not going to have the cap space to be the player like that. So that's the problem, right? You're not in the spot where it is, well, we can just go sign the guy, because that's where the difference was in the AD situation. Was every other team knew, all right, if he's dead set on going to the Lakers, we're not giving the Pelicans a huge package to rent him for a year to watch him just walk to the Lakers. Like that was what kind of killed that a little bit and made everything kind of messy. So I don't, I think this is more about the Cavs too. I think the Cavs are going to say, all right, hey, if he doesn't want to be here, fine, but you got to really blow us away, and we need a monster offer. And I just know that the Lakers are going to be able to get there, because the big get would be the picks, and it's so hard. Lakers picks are just difficult. I've talked about it a million times, so that becomes the hard part.
And so when
Philly
I look
won't have
at
cap space. Philly's going to use their cap space this summer.
and we're talking about next, it's not
Mitchell
this
has
summer that he
another
would be a
year
free agent. It would
left
be the
under his
next year.
contract. Yeah,
Exactly.
he's not a free agent this summer.
Him not extending this summer is what would push him onto the trade market. It won't be until the following summer that he could actually be a free agent, and it would be that threat of him being a free agent that would push the Cavs to trade him. Now, it wouldn't hurt the Lakers' cause if opposing teams, if whoever calls up the Cavs and says, "Hey, we want Donovan Mitchell, we'll give you everything," and Donovan Mitchell goes to that team and says, "Hey, I don't want to play for you. I'm not going to. You can trade for me, but I'm a 1-year rental. I am leaving next summer."
Correct.
That doesn't hurt whoever it is that he's trying to get to. But do we have an indication that Donovan Mitchell is hell-bent on getting to the Lakers? No. So again, it'd be great if it happens, right? But from my perspective anyway, but I don't want to get people fired up and thinking, oh, this is definitely going to happen. And then you get a lot of people disappointed if and when it doesn't. So just it's not impossible, but consider it pretty unlikely. Assume it's not going to happen and then be pleasantly surprised if it does. That's the way I look at it.
Pop, this one, I assume this is about the Lakers. Far more likely, because Zach LaVine is a neutral value contract at best right now.
At best.
Some people say that's a underwater contract and not good with the injuries and everything else. I tend to think it's a lot more neutral. I think he'll probably be okay. Zach LaVine is a better player than he gets a lot of credit for with this, but it becomes the same kind of thing. Now, I don't think you're not trying to beat out 7 other teams.
Yeah.
If you're trying to trade for Zach LaVine, you probably just need to put a fairly good offer out there, and you could get him and just go with that. So that's far more realistic to me, because you're not having to put together the monster trade package nor beat out a whole bunch of other teams' offers.
Keith, if there was a team out there that could just say that had enough cap space that could just say, hey, we'll take Zach and we'll give you a 2nd round pick, but we'll absorb him into our cap space. Do you think the Bulls would do that?
Oh yeah,
we'll take the whole contract.
Let me go back. The Bulls should. Would they? Probably not.
I like the way you phrased that. They should. Now, will they? The Bulls have not done what they should do for a while.
For a while now, yeah. I mean, they should. Yeah, absolutely. Because I guess I look at it this way. Where are you going with Zach LaVine? Maybe if everybody rolled back healthy next year, maybe you win 45 games and you're in the fight for the 6th seed in the East, and that's where you're at. To me, that's not enough. So I would trade him. Essentially, then I'm erasing the contract from my books, and DeRozan expires. Now I'm kind of down to Vucevic and not much else. All right, I can kind of really hit a reset and start over. That's what I would do. But what they would do, probably not. They'd probably say no, or they'd probably prefer 2 middling veterans that could kind of keep them competitive, and just, hey, let's have those guys come back. Yeah, it's just tough.
Man. Who would those guys be? Who would be like the Chicago Bulls fans being kept in torment?
2 veterans, worst nightmare.
Yeah.
Let's see. That would be something like, hey, Hawks, give us DeAndre Hunter and Bogdan Bogdanovic or something like that.
Man.
Not bad players, but okay, cool.
You know
Like,
what? You know who
great.
popped into my head?
Who?
Jeremy Grant.
Yeah. Yeah.
Take on that.
Yeah.
They'll flip him for Jeremy
Yeah.
Grant, and you've got a 30-plus-year-old. He's what, 30, 31 now, Jeremy
Yep.
Grant is, and he can help them win games for a year or two, and then he'd be on the tail end of that Yeah, that's the
Yep.
one that I thought of.
Yeah, that's a good one. Or it'd be like, I mean, this is even worse that Bulls fans would be like, please just end it all. Would be like, you know what? We kind of like Jordan Poole. Let's go get Jordan Poole. Like then it'd be like, oh no, like, what happened here? So
That's so
yeah,
mean.
like that. Yeah, that's like, well, there's no upside left there. If it was like the Warriors were like, hey, you like Andrew Wiggins? You want him? Like Andrew Wiggins and Chris Paul? Like
Oh,
there you go. So yeah, let's say something nice about the Bulls.
yes,
Kobe White, man, balling
he's been
out.
great.
Kobe White's been great. Ayo Dosunmu been really, really good too.
Mhm.
So yeah, I like this one. The Nets.
Yeah.
They didn't. It's now been reported by enough different people in enough places. Sounds like that Rockets offer was at least pretty real. That they gave for Mikal Bridges, and if they weren't moving them for that, which included most, if not all, of their own picks back, they're probably not trading Mikal Bridges.
And
So
it
you just
wasn't.
use
Do we know yet? Was it like, hey, you can have your own picks back, but they're protected 1 through 5 or
Yeah, we
something like,
don't
or
know
was
that.
it just you get your picks back?
Yeah, I think Zach Lowe was the one who, when you listen to Zach or you read Zach, you have to read and listen to everything he says because he likes to throw these little nuggets in that are actually really important takeaways in like his articles or stories. Because like what he'll do is he'll be like, player X is playing really well, and then he'll put like in parentheses or it'll be like, and remember he's a free agent this summer and would like a big contract. Like then it's like,
Right.
oh, well, there's the real takeaway. He said when he talked about that, I think it was on a podcast with Bobby Marks, if I remember right, might have been Tim McMahon. But he talked about it. It was his own show. Zach said, and remember, teams can now protect picks that come from other teams, which isn't something that they were allowed to do. That changed like 5 years ago. And I don't think he just threw that out there for no reason. So
Yeah.
there might have been some protections on it, but still, like you still should have done it. I don't know. We did it once when it first came out. We did it again a second time. We should move forward.
Right. Yeah, but so all of that means Mikal Bridges probably not being moved. Even if the Nets should move him, they're probably not going to. But you never know. Sometimes things change by the time we get to the summertime.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's see what we've got here. Could the Lakers trade? Essentially, this is asking, could you salary dump Gabe Vincent for a couple of second rounders? He's got $11 million to do on his contract next year, $11.5 million season after that. But I mean, I think a lot of it would depend on Gabe is slated to potentially return Sunday. What does he look like from now until the end of the season? That would be a big factor, because if teams look at him and say, well, either he's not the same guy or he's hurt again, and we just think he's going to be nothing for the next 2 years, that's obviously going to be a much more difficult contract to use to move than if he comes back, he looks like himself from the Miami Heat days, he plays well, teams will be much more interested in him at that point.
Yeah, at that point, you're hoping you can put him in a trade as a positive value guy versus salary dumping him. So, yeah, this one is, let's see what happens over the next, 2 months ish, if we run it all the way through the rest of the regular season and playoffs. If the Lakers can make a run again, then let's see what it looks like. And if he's a part of it and actually a helpful player out there doing stuff, now all of a sudden you're in an okay spot. And if he is, then you probably don't need Spencer Dinwiddie, right? Then you're probably like, all right, thanks for what you did for us, but unless you want to come back for very little money, we don't need you. We've got the guy we signed to be what your role has turned into. So I don't know, but second rounders just so everybody's, Lakers are not thin on second rounders, but they're thin-ish on second rounders. They have a couple Clippers seconds coming their way. They do have their own next year in 2025. There's one that they maybe owe to Utah. Depends on if they convey the pick from the Rush trade or not. Then they've got a weird pick that's owed. There's a bunch of complications. They've got another pick that's owed to Washington. And then their next own second rounder is in 2030. So little thin on second rounders. You just want to be careful. You don't want to have none.
And
because it's,
I'm rereading this. This is asking, is it possible to get second rounders? I thought it was
oh,
using second
for two
rounders to
second
move.
rounders.
Yeah,
No,
I thought it was to move off the two.
I
That
was
would
with
be
you.
that would
Yeah.
be if he comes back and he looks like Gabe Vincent from the Miami playoff run from last year. Then maybe, right? But right now, no. You'd probably be attaching seconds. In fact, I know they tried to move Gabe Vincent at the trade deadline and see if they could get somebody to take that contract. People were not interested because he's been hurt and all of that. So yeah, they would need him to come back and play at that Miami Heat level to have any kind of shot at like a positive return, anything coming back for him.
Yeah, I think the challenge too is then you're talking about sending Gabe Vincent to a team that has cap space to bring him in. And I don't know if that's how a team necessarily wants to use their cap space. So I think it's more valuable. If a team's going to give you positive value of 2 second rounders for him, I'd rather use him as a positive piece in a trade where I add his salary to another salary and we go off and get a different player. So we'll see. I don't know. I kind of think Gabe Vincent maybe comes back, plays well enough, whether it's this year, started next year, and Spencer Dinwiddie is the one who moves on. But we'll see. I mean, sometimes these guys, when they end up signing for the minimum, they find it a little hard to find much more than that. And Dinwiddie may be at the point of his career where he's like, he'd rather be here where I'm happy and win games and compete and stay here. So yeah, and have a big role and not have to worry about a bunch of stuff. So yeah, we'll find out, I guess, starting Sunday, right? With Gabe Vincent. So, or potentially starting Sunday.
Happy for, I mean, that's, people get so mad at players when they're out hurt, and it's not their fault. This is not, the Gabe Vincent. There was no part of Gabe Vincent that didn't want to be out on the floor playing. He tried to come back.
He probably
didn't work.
Have.
What's that?
Came back when he probably shouldn't have.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, he probably, if he hadn't tried to come back when he did, he might already be back by now. So yeah.
Right. So I hope it all works out well for him and he's able to get back and be back out on the floor and play because he doesn't want to miss most of the season. That's for sure.
Yeah. Let's finish with this one.
Yeah.
Did the Bucks make the right move trading Drew for Dame? Feel like they miss him. I still think they made the right move with that part of it. I think the Bucks, maybe if you could kind of pour truth serum into John Horst, might have liked to work it into a 4-team trade if the Suns were still going to be in it and send Drew Holiday somewhere else directly that wasn't going to turn around and trade him to Boston. Because I think that's the spot where this kind of got a little bit away from Milwaukee is now the guy came right back around to the team you're trying to beat, your primary competitor in the conference. And in the vacuum, yeah, Drew for Dame has worked out fine. Dame's been pretty good. They've played pretty solid. They're playing really well. So I think the challenge is, man, we're gonna have to probably see this guy to get where we want to be. And now that's the hard part. I think if they could have, now the challenge that comes in there though was right. This trade was done, and Woj did a great job breaking it all down. This trade was done extremely quietly. Because when it was, I remember you and I being like, holy crap, like Dame to the Bucks, like that came out of nowhere. Like where was this?
We were talking Dame to the Heat forever.
Yeah, forever. And it looked like maybe there was some movement of Dame to the Heat, maybe that was starting to kind of get to a place. And that came out of nowhere. And it sounded like in Horst was like, they go back and read this because it's really, really, really good. Where like John Horst had roped in James Jones and been like, hey, I can get you these guys. And then with Joe Cronin, like, I'm gonna get you another guy who's you're gonna really like, but like I can't tell you who it is right now because I don't want anything else getting out about the trade. That's where it gets hard if you'd brought in like the Clippers, right? They really wanted Drew Holiday. If you'd brought in the Clippers as a 4th team, now all of a sudden it's like, all right, that's another team in there now. What are we doing? We'd already started to hear some of the Harden stuff at that point, obviously. And it's like anybody gets wind. And now all of a sudden it's like, all right, this is all out there for everybody to kind of go through it and it all falls apart. So, but yeah, I think if the Bucks could have done anything differently, it would have been find a team to route Drew Holiday to versus just, all right, Portland, he's yours. Do what you need to do with him. Because, I mean, it's so funny. This is one of the true times where we have seen everybody went to Portland's just going to trade him to Boston. And then it happened. Like, it's so rare that all of us, like even the casual fans, the in-depth analysts, the people who work in the league, like everybody's like, Portland's just going to turn around and trade him to Boston. And literally, I think it was 3 days later it happened. So it's just like that was one of those ones where it's like, that's how it's going to go. But yeah, it's it would have been that's the thing I would have changed.
It was a step forward to get Dame, and then they stepped right back by giving Drew to Boston. So that was if they could go back and undo it, I think they probably would, just for that aspect of it, and then either hang on to him into the season and then make the move or something, but something to get Drew anywhere else basically is what they would have I think preferred. I do think there's times where defensively, I mean, they've tried to make Malik Beasley kind of their perimeter defensive guy, and there's been moments where their perimeter defense has not been good. Like, my God, Dame was spinning in circles, totally lost trying to defend the Lakers the other night. And the Lakers offense has been really good, but still that's been rough. And then offensively, he's not, some nights he's still Dame, other nights he's like a step below that. And
there's a lot more of those 3 of 17 games that have snuck in there. Those used to be 1 out of every 7 or 8 games. Now they're more like 1 out of every 6 games. It's not a massive drop off or decline, but they're sneaking in there. And then when he's having a game like that, he just doesn't really offer you a whole lot else. Now, I think Dame's ceiling for the Bucks is higher than what the ceiling was with Drew Holiday, because Drew Holiday, as much as I love him, he's not winning you a game by himself. No. Dame can pretty much do that. If Dame has one of those nights where he comes out and scores 50 plus points, so he's gonna win you a game. And Holiday's not going to do that. But if Dame is having one of those terrible shooting nights, he doesn't offer you a whole lot else. Where at least Holiday, all right, he's still going to give me defensive playmaking. Like, that's still going to be there. So, again, the story on all these things aren't going to be written until the end of the year, but really. And even then, that's only the first part of that story. Like, that's like chapter 1, because these guys are going to be in place on these teams probably for years to come. But yeah, it's kind of fun to think through that. Like, what if, like, and that'll be an interesting talking point if they match up in the East Finals of, should they have moved Holiday to another team instead of letting Portland make that trade? As an aside with Portland, their top 6 guys from like early in the season are all out. DeAndre Ayton, Malcolm Brogdon, Jeremy Grant, Shaedon Sharpe, Anthony Simons, Robert Williams III. All out. They're starting.
Are they even there, or they just say, "Hey, go find a beach somewhere, guys"? And
well, Simon's a little different because he's in and out of the lineup, but I think I don't know with the other guys, but yeah, that's crazy, right?
Yeah,
like your top 6 guys from the start of the year are all good, all like injured and out right now, and starting 5 rookies. Like, that's
that tank is fired up.
Yeah,
it is full steam ahead.
Yeah, and it's not inconceivable that they don't slide. They're definitely not going to catch Washington or Detroit. They've already won too much to catch those guys, but only 2 behind in this case, San Antonio, and only a half game behind Washington. So Portland, maybe they come away with the 3rd pick in the draft. We'll see.
Do they win again?
Maybe not. Starting all rookies. Well, they have 9 games left. They'd be finishing the year on a 17-game losing streak.
Let me see what their schedule is.
A lot of
I mean, this is their schedule. Okay, so you've got Hornets and Wizards.
Yep.
Outside of that, though.
And those are on the road.
Wow.
They're going to win one of those and just make everybody mad. But their fans will be mad. They'll win one of those games where they're trying to chase a team down, probably the Hornets, because they're kind of fighting with them for draft position. Maybe they'll win that one, and then they'll be one of those good teams. It'll probably be the Celtics, and then everybody will get angry about it on both sides, because it's like, why did we win? And the other team like, how the hell did we lose to Portland?
I mean, they have Warriors Rockets back to back. And both teams will probably be, locked in their playoff race then, so they're going to be playing. Maybe the Kings don't play their guys the last game of the season.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I mean, the way the Kings are going, like that game's
they probably will need to. So yeah, they may not. If they don't pick up a win over Charlotte or Washington at the beginning here of April, Portland may finish on a 17-game losing streak. Wow.
Yep.
They should really do that. they could get involved in that that next tier from the the tank race.
Yep. Gonna be
All
fun.
right.
We got 2 weeks left. How do we only have 2 weeks left?
How did this happen? It feels like it was yesterday that we were talking about how great it is that the season is starting.
Yep.
And we were getting ready for Halloween, and now here we are.
I was looking at it, and I'm like, we have 2 weeks left in the regular season. Playoffs are in 3 weeks. 3 weeks from now, you and I will be sitting down on Front Office Friday doing playoff predictions.
Unbelievable.
I can't believe we're already there. Like, just
unbelievable.
It really is crazy. Like, season went by faster than any I can remember.
It really
just
did.
absolutely zipped right by. But
it's flown.
Time flies when you're having fun, I guess.
Yep. Before you know it, we're going to be talking about the draft and all that stuff.
Almost there.
Or even more.
Which is a good time to tell people, hit subscribe. We get off-season stuff coming. Fun stuff. We'll tease it a little bit. Talk to a couple of people who do some reporting and insider stuff will be coming on. Give us some perspective and some of the people they talk to. This year, we're going to try to get some team experts on when we start breaking down the offseason and the like. It's going to be a lot of stuff. So it's going to be great. We're really
absolutely. And I just dropped the link one more time, guys. Go check out the Basketball Bulletin. Great way to support us directly and get some written work from Keith, myself, Bryce, Simon. There's some good stuff.
We'll have stuff up this weekend for sure on there. I've got a bunch of stuff I'm trying to clean up now. I'm trying to make it readable, so it's not just my virtual chicken scratch, if you will.
Well, we're looking forward to that. Thank you again, everybody. We're over the hour mark now. I think we'll call it a day, but I appreciate all of you coming in, hanging out on a Friday and talking some basketball with us. And a big night of NBA basketball tonight. Lots of stuff going on. So we may end up doing a weekend update show. We'll do that tomorrow. So be on the lookout for that. But again, if you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel yet, do hit that subscribe button. YouTube.com/NBA front office. We certainly do appreciate all you. Till next time, everybody. See ya and stay safe.